Welcome to Dreamers and Winners podcast with your host, T.R. Burns. We have a great show for you today, talking about mental health, the dark side of entrepreneurship. So get your pens, your papers, dial your neighbor, text somebody, share on social media, and let them know. This is the podcast for all entrepreneurs to listen to, Dreamers and Winners podcast. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Dreamers and Winners podcast with your host, T.R. Burns. We have a great show for you today. We're talking about the dark side of entrepreneurship. And what I'm talking about, mental health. Before we get into that, let's recap. We had a great show last episode. We talked about starting where you're at. And if you have not already watched it, listened to it, shared it, you need to do it so you can learn how to start where you are at. This show is important, this episode, because it touches home for so many entrepreneurs. Mental health. We go through so many ups and downs. We are, just the defeat, the rejection, the success, the balance of family life and friendships. It can really take a toll on your mind. So I wanted to take time out on this second episode of Dreamers and Winners and dedicate to just showing some of our entrepreneurs how we can combat this, what we should look for, when we should seek therapy, because I have been and still am in that position where I have not hit that mark of success that I want to be at. And I'm fighting day by day to stay vibrant, relevant, to meet my goals, to stay mentally healthy in a world where sometimes people are just mean, unforgiving, and inconsiderate. So this broadcast is really dedicated to help all entrepreneurs navigate the mental part of being who you are and doing what you do. Because if we're not healthy, no matter how much money we make, it's not going to matter. So let's get into this show today. The dark side of entrepreneurship, mental health. So, I started really considering doing this episode months ago because, I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years and I have gone through so many different transitions, failures, successes. And in them transitions, failures, and successes, many times we don't take a break to recover mentally, to rest, to get our mind in a space of healthiness, because we are constantly chasing the next goal. And it's very important that, we take time to mend the brokenness in us, because success does not come without some pain, some wounds, some stabbings, and some shootings sometimes. If you ask anyone that is very successful, they have more stories of the battles than they have of the award they received. So, you have entrepreneur, this word, I'm an entrepreneur, being kicked around social media like a soccer ball on a teenage high school field. And people look at it and they glorify it. But there is a dark side to this process of building something. We are literally creating something from nothing as an entrepreneur. We are putting our heart into this thing. And so before the riches, the celebration, the media coverage, the frenzy comes in, our entrepreneur has to struggle with daily failures, lack of resources for survival, family and friends pressure, social isolation due to lack of time at the personal level, and on a professional side, an uphill task of convincing people to work with us, to join a vision, and to continue with that even through adversities. It's we have to convince, we have to sell people constantly on these different factors of what we're building and what we're producing, and this creates a lot of different type of emotions. It creates this kind of powder keg of emotions and feelings, and just so much goes on in our mind. So even when you're seeing an entrepreneur smiling, laughing, many times inside they're dying and crying because something it's not functioning correctly. Something needs to get paid. Someone left. Something didn't happen the way that they kind of created this plan to happen. You have to deal with that. And many times we don't know how to deal with that part. And then there is the pressure of family expectations. People feel like, well, if you open up yesterday, you should be rich today. And then you have the 9-to-5ers, the people that have a concept of entrepreneurship from a 9-to-5 perspective, and they're looking at it through the window of how they work and get a check every week from the job that they work, not seeing that we don't get a check every week. We have to produce a check. We have to create something, and then we get paid off of what's left over. And many times in the beginning, it's not a lot left over. So we're dealing with that feeling of failure, feeling of that we're rejected because we misunderstood, rather, because the people that we really want to impress, that we want to see, that we want them to say, hey, you're successful or you're making it. In the beginning stages, they don't see it. They don't have the sight, the vision, or the understanding of the complexity of what it takes to take a dream from an unseen place and bring it to a place of reality. How much pain is I would say it's just as much or more pain as bringing a baby into this world. Labor pains to produce, and then you have to take care of that child. All right, so let's get into some of these emotions that we experience. The first one I want to talk about is depression. Going through the tough cycle of making a dream turn into a reality, dealing with more rejections, failures can make a person hopeless. And if the person does not have adequate support, which many of us don't, he or she is very susceptible to fall into the trap of depression, a serious mental health disorder marked by persistent hopelessness, lack of concentration, diminished will to work, and pursue goals, and persistent social withdrawal. I've been there. I've experienced this hands-on, head-on, and it is a true thing. When you are constantly experiencing rejection, these are the signs. This is signs of depression. You withdraw. You can't focus, especially those of us that are creative entrepreneurs, where we are doing something artistically. If we're not feeling like it matters or like it's worth it, many times when we slip into depression, our creative process and the quality of what we create diminishes. Another one is bipolar disorder. And although bipolar disorder is a genetic disorder, entrepreneurs with highs and lows as part of our life, with successes and failures, and the roller coaster of nature of the nature of this professional journey, are more likely to suffer from bipolar disorder. If they have a genetic predisposition. Bipolar disorder makes a person go through highs and lows, up and down. And I've been there. I'm not saying I'm bipolar, but I've experienced them highs and lows. And I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs. It's just, one minute you up, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make it happen. And then something happens, a phone call happens, something changes, and you kind of in a low place. And so this is another part of mental health that we need to deal with. Another one is anxiety disorder. Performance pressure, anxiety to do better than ever is what motivates an entrepreneur. But through the cycles of uncertainties, fear of failing, dealing with many failures in the present can push us as entrepreneurs into a cycle of endless worry and lack. Been there, got that t-shirt. Lack of optimism and imagining the worst. And many times, even though for many entrepreneurs like myself, my imagination is an asset, but then it also can be the warden to our prison, because we begin to think on the what ifs, and what ifs produces fear. It is a byproduct of fear. It manifests fear. So when you have had many failures, many times the thing that imprisons you to the past and won't allow you to move forward in the future is the fact that you have failed in the past, and that what if I fail again stops us. And so we have this anxiety because we're constantly imagining the worst thing, and that thing will not necessarily happen. Another one is dysphoria, a state of generalized dissatisfaction with life. And many times when our businesses and our family, it's just things are not going the way that we want. We become dissatisfied with life, and this produces dysphoria. This is by far the most common mental health issue faced by entrepreneurs, because when we don't see the results of the hard work, the late nights, the sacrifices, the maxing out of credit cards, the giving up of the mortgage money, the rent, whatever you're doing to keep your business and your dream going, and you don't see it producing relationships, producing money, producing the things that you desire, you begin to function and you begin to be suffering from a dysphoria of dissatisfaction. And I've been there where you're just dissatisfied because, and what I want to say is, many times we can't really explain it to everyone because they don't understand what our passion is, what we're trying to achieve, and what we're trying to produce. The fact is, many of us as entrepreneurs and dreamers are surrounded by normal thinking, just regular thinking people. They're not really thinking about the stars, the moon, how does the rain fall. They're thinking about, what's on TV, what's happening on social media. And so because of that, when we have a dysphoria going on in our life, people look at it like, well, why are you upset? You have this business or you have that going on. They don't get it that your business and your dreams are attached to a certain expectation and a goal. And that goal and expectation, we want to produce a way of living, a way of life for our families. If we're just working to work, we're building to build, and it's not producing and translating into the goals that we have, then we are not happy with the state that we're in. And so either we're spending time being unhappy or we're spending time trying to figure out how do we fix this thing. Either way, we're spending time in our mind because we don't want to be in a place or a state of dissatisfaction, because for many of us, business, dreaming, creating is our blood, is our life. It's why we're here. And so when you're dealing with individuals and people that have not either come into that aha moment, that light bulb moment, or they have given that light bulb up, they can't understand your dissatisfaction with life because they look at it from the perspective of themselves only. They don't look at it from how, if I'm not in a position to help others. See, most people that are really called into entrepreneurship or feel like this is their assignment in life and purpose, they're doing this to change someone else, to help somebody else, to create something for someone else. Whether it's their kids, their children, or somebody in the community, their goal is to do better, to help people become better. And so that dysphoria, that state of generalized just dissatisfaction is a common thing that we all go through. And so many times you can't really define it. You can't even have a conversation with someone outside of the place of dreaming and entrepreneurship, because if they're working a regular job or they're just don't get it, it's going to become more frustrating to try to find the words to articulate how you feel and why you're dissatisfied. We have to find the words. We have to define this thing, because the root cause, if we find the root, we will be able to prevent the fruit of the dysphoria that we are experiencing in our life. I spend time doing that. I'm in a dysphoria some days myself where I have to sit down and just say, hey, what is the root? Because many times the issues of mental health issues in an entrepreneur is cloaked by responsibilities and bills and employees, but really we have to simplify the conversation by the question of what do you want to see happen. I think many times we looking at it from a day-by-day perspective, but we need to look at it from a simpler place. Like, what do I want to see? What is the point of this? At the root of this venture, what do I want to get out of it? I fight with that because many times I don't put myself in a scenario to benefit. And I know that's a problem with many entrepreneurs, is that we get joy out of doing, but we don't always understand that if we don't prosper by what we do, then we are just a slave. We're just self-employed. We have to prosper. The prosperity of what we do is our resume, is our affirmation. So a lot of times we're struggling with rejection because some people they don't get it. They don't see it. They just see you, doing this business and doing that business, or jumping out of this and doing that. And they don't understand it because there's not really a pattern that you are presenting to people. And many times we don't have a pattern to necessarily present to people, or to ourselves, if you would. We're following what we sense, what we feel, what we believe. And because of that, it makes people look at you crazy, like, hey, what is this person doing? So in that instance, their fear is translated to us as a rejection, because they fear us. They fear what we're doing. They see, it's like watching someone have open heart surgery and they make that incision. It's like you cover your eyes. You can't take it, because all you're imagining is if you had that scalpel cutting you, you're not looking at it from the perspective of the person. You're looking at it how it makes you feel. So then that translates to rejection, because people say, well, I'm not going to be I don't trust that because so-and-so. So how we overcome that is by, at the root level of what we're producing, we have to find a way to prosper, to succeed. Our level of prospering and succeeding is our affirmation, and no one can reject your results. Now, so with this dysphoria, which is a generalized state of dissatisfaction, we have to go to the root conversation with ourselves. What do we want? No, not who we want to help, not what we want to build, but what do we want to see? How do we want to feel? How do we want to be treated? I think these conversations we don't have with ourselves enough, and so we allow people to make to answer them questions for us with their actions, and so we have to deal with that. That is a common thing for entrepreneurs, that generalized state of dissatisfaction. And I know for me personally, and that's why I really took my time with this episode to put it out there, because I know a lot of people feel isolated. They feel by themselves, and it's embarrassing sometimes to say, hey, I'm depressed. Hey, I'm going through dysphoria. I have anxiety disorder, or you may have bipolar disorder. It's something that is sometimes frowned upon, makes us look weak. People don't like to follow people that have certain transparent issues. And so we try to keep it a secret, and we bottle it up inside, and then we allow people to abuse us because we want some sense of significance. But many times when we're struggling with these mental disorders, we're pursuing significance from people that we shouldn't be pursuing significance from. And that creates this person that always is saying yes or always is saying no, because they don't understand what acceptance is of oneself. They don't understand what it means to be all right with who you are, even though you're a little broken and you are not in the state that you want to be in, but you're working towards something. And you're admitting you have an issue. You're admitting that you're dissatisfied, because when you start admitting, then you can start getting down to healing and deliverance and get that hopelessness out of us. But many times we're around people that benefit from our weakness. In my businesses, I've gotten to places, even today, where you need people and they know you need them. They know you need them. And because of that reason, they would say things, they would do stuff, because they know you need them in that moment of life. And that, many times we are stuck in hard places where we need the help, we need the people, and people will take advantage of that. And that causes us to go into a deeper self-hate. And I think many times we spend time trying to love a business, love a thing, love the what it can produce, but we don't spend time loving ourselves. And loving yourself many times is getting rest, taking a vacation, taking a break. And if you're like me, you say, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't have the right team. But some things we have to cast on God. We have to give our burdens to God and say, well, if it falls, it falls. But if I fall, it surely will fall, because I am the visionary of this thing. And so, for me, for 20 years, I put off many great things I could have done, because I'm trying to make sacrifices, being honorable. And I found that people will allow you to be boo-boo the fool and neglect your family, neglect yourself, neglect your home, neglect even your dreams, as long as they're benefiting. But the minute that they're not benefiting, they will look down on you. And then you are in a deeper sickness mentally and sometimes even physically, because you did not, listen to the signs that you needed rest. You needed to see a therapist. You need to talk to somebody. And there are countless amount of men and women that are in the grave today because they couldn't take the pressures of their dreams. They couldn't take the pressures of, what they were building, couldn't take the rejection, and they committed suicide. They ended their life. And there are countless men and women that are not physically dead, but just mentally and spiritually dead because they could not take the pressures. And they allowed it to send them to a place, whether it's drug abuse, whether it's women abuse, men abuse, and all these different issues are byproducts of mental disorders and not being able to handle and manage the challenges that comes with the dark side of being an entrepreneur. And if you're just logging on, this is TR Burns with Dreamers and Winners Podcast, episode 2, the dark side of entrepreneurship. We're talking about mental health today. So we went over some of the disorders, and I want to give you some active steps that you need to do so you can fight against these mental issues and you can be a successful entrepreneur mentally, naturally, spiritually, and financially. Foresight. You need foresight. Even before you take the plunge, try to see the future. I'm an advocate of being prophetic, being in the future, not just in now, not in just how you feel, but what will be in the future. Many decisions we make for now, but we got to make decisions also for tomorrow, and making sure that your family, your money can take what the dark side of entrepreneurship is sometimes, because you can jump into something and in my business classes I teach them, and I hear people all the time, and all they're infatuated with is to be rich. And what they don't understand, prior to getting rich, you're gonna be shot, your leg gonna be broken, you're gonna lose some things. It's a lot of process to get to that step of wealth. That's not I start and tomorrow I'm wealthy. For some it may seem that way, but even in that, it still didn't happen that way. The next one is, you gotta, I am. I love the word of God. It says, Jesus, I am that I am. And the belief that an entrepreneur has to believe in him or herself. I am an entrepreneur. No matter if I'm failed, no matter if I've succeeded, no matter if I'm mentally broken, I'm still who I am. And that's what we go through a lot, that attack of identity. Many people struggle with that identity, so they only feel that I am an entrepreneur when I am successful. But when I am a failure, I feel like, okay, I'm not an entrepreneur. And I've struggled with that even in my Christian ministry of being a leader, is that, when I didn't have a lot of people following or coming to church or whatever I was doing, I'm Brother Burns, but I was very convicted because, when your father, your mother named you, that's your name. When they give you that title, that's your name, whether you feel that way or not, that's your name. Yes, you can go and legally change it, but within you, that is your name. And so, no matter what state you are in, I am a movie maker. I am a leader. I am an entrepreneur. I am a husband. I am a father. No matter how many mistakes I've made in that place or that state, I have to know I am this thing. The next one is you have to have some grit. Entrepreneur needs to actively work on their strength, strength training, working out at the gym. It is a combination of dieting and cardio, but also strength training. You get the weight down. Now you got the flabby stomach and the flabby arms. And so you have to begin to be able to strength train by lifting weights and increments. And as you can, as the resistance on one level is not strong enough to create more muscle, you have to add more weight to that. You have to get tough. You need to have mental toughness. for where you're at. And how do you have mental toughness? Okay, well, reading and getting books about not only business but also your finances, also mental health, reading things and doing things like vacationing and going to meetups and trying to meet like-minded individuals. It's just so many things you have to do to build that strength so that when the dark side is going to come of entrepreneurship, you're prepared for that. Another one is hope. You have to keep the hope alive, in the words of Jesse Jackson. You know, the most important thing for entrepreneurs is hope. You know, once you fall into hopelessness, every time you come with an idea, you're going to cancel it out. Every time you try to do something, you're going to cancel it out. You know, I've done that. You know, I've started something one day and I closed it the next day because of hopelessness. I'm laboring in an idea of the historical failure of my past. And people call it childishness. People say, just get over that thing. And that annoys me so much because, you know, usually it's the person doing nothing telling you to get over a lot. You know, I've experienced that. Usually it's the person that does nothing is telling you to get over a lot. That's a quotable and that's a motivation. #motivation. Stop listening to people that are doing nothing telling you to get over a lot. They don't understand what it takes to sometimes move forward in some of these things that you're trying to move forward in. So you have to have hope. You have to have hope. You have to stay focused on fixing the problems and celebrating small, tiny, and itsy bitsy wins. Don't wait for it to be a Grammy. Celebrate your just recognition. I don't know. You know, sometimes we're waiting for the biggest, moment. And sometimes it's the small moments that will keep you alive the next day to build again. Find a therapist, find someone to talk to, whether a spiritual person or just a regular therapist, a licensed therapist, just to vent. Just to talk to. I know my wife gets tired sometimes because she don't always have the answers, but I vent to her. But I found I need to talk to a therapist. I need to talk to someone about some of the challenges I have, just the day-to-day stuff. Because if you don't, you bottle up and you start thinking, I am absolutely losing my mind. Another one is emotional support. An entrepreneur must have a circle of friends. And I know I don't. I have maybe one or two people I talk to. But it's been a challenge building friendships. That's been one of my desires and prayers, to have good relationships, good friends. It's been challenging to do that for me. I'm not saying for everyone, but I know that's important. That's a part of healthiness, because even when things are bad, you got friends to hang out with, to chill, to get your mind off some things, and you can fight again the next day. And, emotional support is not a waste of time. Many times we look at if it's not making money or the potential of producing or our goals, then it's a waste of time. But that is not. When I've had some good relationships and friends and spent time with them, it just made me feel healed. Even if I had to go back the next day to fight 1,000 wars. That time we spent at the restaurant, that time we spent watching a movie, that time we spent laughing and joking was healing for me. And I think a lot of times, the enemy always tries to keep us isolated from good relationships. And, you got a lot of entrepreneurs that feel like they're so creative and they're so on such another level that no one can be their friend. Well, you have fooled yourself, buddy or sister. You need somebody to be your friend to you. And lastly, you got to always be becoming. Reinvent yourself. If something's not working, do something else. I am the king of changing up, changing an industry, working on a different business, starting something new. And it offends people, honestly, because people say, well, you've been doing this, now you're doing that. But sometimes the healing and the victory is in your reinventing of yourself. I went from being the kingdom hustler to a mogul to being just IMTR Burns. Going through these processes and finding myself and knowing that, when God put me on this earth, I will never stop becoming more and more every day. Don't allow people to box you in to something for, because of appearances. If the business is not doing what it's supposed to do, close it if you have to close it. Shut it down. Now, I'm learning that, sometimes you just got to do that. You got to let it go, because there's more coming. If there's more ideas in you, there's more creativity in you. You got to keep on going, keep on reinventing yourself, keep on studying. And one of my key things for reinventing myself and becoming more is knowledge. It's constantly training, always reading, because certain moments of healing in your mind, even in your finances, will come through unexpected conduits, just being in a car with somebody or being at a certain place at a certain time. And it just gives you this idea or puts two things together. So you have to constantly be reinventing yourself. Look at a lot of people that have transitioned that we respect today as entrepreneurs. Sean Puffy Combs, he went from being Puff Daddy to Puffy to Sean Combs, from being a rap hip hop producer, intern, to owning a record label, to now owning fashion, liquor, all these different type of businesses. He became more than what he started as. And you have to be all right with the naysayers, because when you in between that transition, you're gonna have a lot of critics. So this has been a great broadcast about mental health and the dark side of entrepreneurship. Now listen, this is TR Burns. And if you want to send me an email, if you want to follow me on Facebook at IMTRBurns, follow me on Instagram at IMTRBurns, and send me a message. Let me know that you are a dreamer and a winner and you listen to the podcast today. Until next time, this is TR Burns with Dreamers and Winners Podcast.